So Linus thinks Linux isn't good for gaming, but that's not exactly true. See, Linus and Luke, particularly Luke, were used to playing games with people online. And if that's how you're defining gaming, then you're probably going to have a bad time with Linux. But that's not all that gaming or PC using has to offer. So while they say that Linux gaming isn't a good experience, I think it's a bit disingenuous of the full gamut of video games and productivity on PCs. So I wanted to go over some of the things that Linux is actually great at. And let's start with single-player gaming. Now, if you've followed this channel for any length of time, you'll know that I am a chronic single-player gamer. I'm not really into online gaming, so when it comes to Linux gaming, it really makes sense for me. And generally speaking, single-player gaming experiences don't have anti-cheat problems, and they don't have compatibility issues with Proton. And that's a good thing if you want to play a title on Linux. Hades is a great example of a single-player game that runs perfectly out of the box on Proton. But Hades isn't the only title that works great with Valve's compatibility framework. Most single-player games are going to run on it without a hitch, and that's where I think the Steam Deck is actually really going to shine, at least initially. But there's also Remote Play Together games. Now, Remote Play Together is a great feature for games that only support local multiplayer. Anyone who's on your Steam friends list can be invited from wherever they are, and they can play the same game with you. Games like It Takes Two, Towerfall Ascension, and Unravel 2 can all be played with any of your friends while on Linux, and this doesn't require any additional setup. But there's also FOSS games. Now, even before Valve's initiative to support Linux, free and open source games almost universally had Linux support. In addition to Mac and Windows, of course. Just check the list on Wikipedia for all the open source games that are available. Among them is SuperTux, SuperTux Kart, Battle for Westnoth, Zero AD, Xonotic, Mindtest, Caesarea, and OpenTTD. There's also Sonic Robo Blast, forked from the Doom engine that features everyone's favorite hedgehog. So whether you're looking for a first-person shooter, a Mario Kart-like experience, an ancient Roman city builder, or an alternative to Minecraft, FOSS games have you covered at no cost. And if multiplayer is more your speed, there's also FOSS multiplayer games. Awesome Open Source lists over 1,000 open source games that have multiplayer support. Most of these games aren't using a proprietary third-party software like anti-cheat, and they work flawlessly across Linux, Mac, and Windows. Titles like OpenRA, which provides a nostalgic and competitive real-time strategy experience, or a competitive arena shooter with Xonotic. Or maybe you want a remake of the OG Metaverse, FreeSO. Just download the game and play it. It's that simple. So we've covered single-player games, local multiplayer over the web, we've talked about free and open source games, both single and multiplayer, but there's also another kind of gaming that we're forgetting about. Before there were Steam games with Proton, we had to kick things old school with Vanilla Wine, manually configuring prefixes and using the WineHQ database to figure out why things weren't working. But we did it, and we had fun trying to launch the old games in our collection. I have hundreds of retro PC games that I boot up from time to time, and doing so in Wine is actually a lot of fun to me. We also have a superb collection of emulators, and honestly, Linux emulation is a cut above most other emulators on PC. The more advanced options like RPCS3, the PS3 emulator, and Yuzu, the Nintendo Switch emulator, puts Windows performance to shame in the same software, especially when using Vulkan. So that's the Linux gaming experience, but what about other types of PC usage? Well, we have web browsers. Whether you're using Firefox or LibreWolf, Chrome, Chromium, Brave, or any other bastardization of Chrome. Nearly all of them have a Linux version. Even Microsoft supports their Edge browser on Linux for some reason. And they all work as they should too. You can edit documents on the web, browse and play videos from the internet. You can play games through Xbox Game Pass and even watch Netflix movies by enabling DRM. Now, if you have a Chromebook that's powered by Chrome OS, well, Chrome OS is actually built on top of Linux. So all the work that you're doing on a Chromebook is Linux behind the scenes. And that covers a lot of the productivity spectrum. Since a lot of things can be done through the web these days, you don't need to have dedicated apps running on your computer. But if you are looking for more native app solutions, there's Thunderbird. Thunderbird is great. It's a native email client. And there's also LibreOffice. It's a free and open source suite of tools that let you do pretty much everything you can do in Microsoft Office these days. Create spreadsheets, edit documents, and LibreOffice is backwards compatible with Microsoft Office files too, meaning that when you transfer to Linux, you don't have to convert your old documents into something that LibreOffice can understand. Video editing is also a possibility as well. Most of the videos on this channel are edited with Kdenlive, which is available on Linux. There's also OpenShot and Shotcut. Even Blender has a video editor in it. There's also a few proprietary video editors on Linux, such as DaVinci Resolve and Lightworks. And what about 3D modeling? Well, Blender has you covered, and it's pretty much an industry standard at this point. Now, what about coding? Well, Visual Studio Code, not to be confused with Visual Studio, is available on Linux. There's tons of IDEs available for coding though, not just Visual Studio Code. There's Bluefish to edit HTML files, Geany, Gedit, Kate, and Atom. Whatever language you prefer to write in, chances are there's an IDE available for you, all working natively on Linux. While gaming may have a little ways to go on Linux, it's getting better over time. It's certainly way better than it was back in 2013 or 2014 when the Steam machines flopped. But even now, there's workarounds to get games that normally don't run on Linux working through streaming, for example, via Xbox Game Pass or Shadowplay, or by using a Windows virtual machine with a GPU pass-through. That being said, almost everything else is certainly possible on Linux. Web browsing, document viewing and editing, video editing, and coding are all achievable. But I want to know what you think. What kind of tasks do you use Linux for? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, you know what to do. You can hit that like button and share it with your friends. You can also subscribe to stay up to date with all the cool things that we're doing here on the channel. I want to give a special shout out to my friends on Patreon and my YouTube members, without whom I wouldn't be able to do this. So thanks guys. If you believe in the work that we're doing, you can help support this show by pledging your monthly support with the links below. It's because of you that I'm able to continue doing this, so thank you. That's going to do it for now though. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a blessed day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.